Well, good morning. Wow, you guys, you look absolutely amazing. You know, I've been checking you out all weekend, so if you sat near me and you thought I was staring at you, I probably was. Anticipating this moment because I wanted to look into the eyes of each and every one of you because you are so very special. I hope you've gotten that this weekend. You are special. And aren't we all so blessed to be a part of Advocare, being led by incredible leadership who would create an environment like this because they care about each and every one of you. So I know at this point in the weekend, you are probably filled to the brim. You're trained up, you're motivated, inspired, excited, and if we let you go right now, you'd probably go blow somebody's eyebrows off. But I'm going to ask you just to pack that down this morning. Make a little bit more room because I have a message for you. How many of you love it when the FedEx truck rolls up into your driveway with your Advocare products? That's like Christmas all year long. You know, that's what I have witnessed this weekend, is a package being delivered to you. But do you know that there are some times when that FedEx driver has to get out of the truck and ring the doorbell because the package requires your signature, because you're the only one that can receive it. That's the kind of messages that you've received this weekend. And all weekend we've been unpacking this wonderful delivery. And it's been a beautiful thread just woven throughout the fabric of this success school. And it's been a message of freedom. Have you ever wondered what freedom actually is? I looked up the definition of freedom. And here's what I found. It's the power to determine action without restraint. Now, I realize that in a room this size, freedom looks different for probably every individual. If you're like me and you've ever called customer service, you can hear Diane McDaniel's voice saying now, and freedom looks different for all kinds of people. Or where in America can you experience freedom like that? We're all in search of freedom. But have you ever actually thought about what freedom truly looks like and what it would feel like to live a life without restraint? Well, 4 years ago, Dusty and I were not free. And it wasn't because of a lack of effort. It was truly a lack of knowledge. I thought I was doing everything in my power to lose weight. My husband thought he was doing everything that he could to provide for our family and keep me home with our 3 children. But you know, at that point, in August of 2011, I weighed 250 pounds in a size 20. After having my thyroid radiated in 2005, I'd gained over 100 pounds. And I was miserable, and I was desperate, and I was a prisoner in my own body. 1 week before we were introduced to Advocare, I prayed a prayer. God, let me live long enough to see my grandbabies. That's how hopeless and desperate I was. And I walked into Success School on day 7 of a 24-day challenge, and things began to change. Now, my physical need was very apparent, but what most people did not know is my husband had taken a 40% cut in pay. And let me say right here, I don't know where he is in the crowd, but my husband is a champion. He's a fighter, he's a dreamer, and he's a survivor. He was working 3 jobs to make things work, but things were getting desperate. But sitting in Success School, we started a journey of freedom. You know, like you, I shed many tears that weekend because something began to stir inside of me. I've always said that my husband, he's a dreamer, and I'm the realist. But here's what I realized. I had simply just lowered my expectation of life, and I had really just kind of quit dreaming just so I wouldn't be disappointed. But AdvoCare wakes up dreams. And sitting in that success goal, I became a dreamer. You are all dreamers. Just ask a 5-year-old what they want to be when they grow up, and they will tell you without reservation. But somehow along the way, we began to forfeit our freedom for a mindset of mediocrity. It's almost like we drive these stakes in the ground of our mind, and we come bound to things like insecurity, guilt, fear. And that's where we were 4 years ago. We were frustrated physically and financially, but we were looking for a solution. My husband was frustrated for being told no to vacation time. He was frustrated over forfeiting memories with our children because of a lack of time and a lack of money, moments that could never be recaptured, like my daughter playing in a prestigious tournament in Colorado. Her team won the whole tournament. She drove in the winning run. She was the MVP. She was interviewed by the newspapers, and her daddy wasn't even there. But our journey continued. My husband ended up losing 40 pounds on products. I lost 125 pounds. Guys, that in and of itself gives freedom. So a couple of weeks ago, we had our son away for the weekend, and we were in a hotel. He said, "Hey, Mom, let's go down to the pool." And so we did, and while we were down there, he said, "Hey, let's walk on our hands and see who can walk the farthest." We were doing flips in the pool, and hey, it had been a while for me. So I was going to try a backflip underwater. About halfway over, I felt like I got stuck. You know, when I came up, kind of a moment of vertigo. But while we were laying in bed that night, my son says, "Hey, Mom, I had fun today." And I said, "Son, so did I." And tears began to just roll down my face. Because 4 years ago, I didn't even own a bathing suit. 4 years before, that memory would not have even been made. Because 4 years ago, I wasn't free. You know, our journey continued to unlock freedoms along the way, where 9 months after we put the first product in our body, my husband was able to come home to be a full-time dad and a constant presence in our children's lives. So my daughter's senior year, she was a four-sport athlete, and her dad was able to be present at every single moment. We had no idea at that point how valuable that time would be. Because after she graduated from high school, after her freshman year in college, she came and told us that she was called to be a full-time missionary. So in April of this past year, my baby girl, at 18 years old, left our home to pursue her call, her passion, and her purpose. And her AdvoCare business has paid her over half the support that she needs to remain on the mission field. And then just a couple of weeks ago, my son had a football camp, and Dusty was able to be there. So I called Dusty and I said, "So, are there a lot of parents there?" Because I wanted to make sure he was recruiting. And he said, "Just a few granddaddies." And I thought, that's just another reminder of the freedoms that AdvoCare has brought into our household. So freedom for the Hammocks means time freedom. It means debt freedom. It's traveling the world. It's educating our children through experiences. And it's being able to give and give big. Simply put, it's just to be a funnel, to be a difference maker, and to leave a legacy. But all that did not come without breaking free. All of that did not come until we changed the way that we were thinking. And so what I want to tell you today is this is not mind over matter. This is what is in your mind matters. The wisest and richest man to ever walk this planet said that as a man thinks, so is he. And we made a decision that we were going to prefer a dangerous freedom to a peaceful slavery. So over the past several years, we've been able to take our children on several missions trips, a couple to Kenya, and we were able to take them on safari. I know a bunch of our leaders were able to enjoy that incredible experience. And so we would get up in the morning and we would go on safari. We would all load into the Jeep and we would set out to look for the big five. And our guide would take us through the bush, and he would bring us right on these majestic animals. We would see giraffe, wildebeest, hippos. I mean, it's just amazing. And then just come within feet of the most majestic lions. But one thing that I noticed was we never approached the elephant. And so I asked the guide, why do we stay so far from the elephant? He said, because elephants travel in herds, which often includes a baby. And if that mama feels threatened, she will charge the Jeep. And with her strength, that powerhouse, weighing up to 14,000 pounds, with a trunk strong enough to uproot a tree, would toss that Jeep like a matchbox car. And yet I've seen my daughter ride on the back of an elephant in Nepal. And I know all of us have seen an elephant stand behind a flimsy fence in a zoo. Or maybe you've even seen an elephant chained to a small stake. How is that possible? So I did a little research, and here's what I found, that elephants are actually trained in India. And so when that baby elephant is small, the trainer will shackle a chain to its leg and attach it to a stake. And that baby elephant will pull and tug and war against that stake, but he's truly just too small to dislodge it. And so because of that experience, that elephant is convinced that the chain and the stake actually had the power to bind him. And so, even 10 years later, when this powerhouse, weighing thousands of pounds, capable of uprooting a full-grown tree, will still stay chained to a small stake and will not even attempt to break free. You see, it's not the stake in the ground that holds the elephant. It's the stake in the elephant's mind. And in a room this size, I know that we all face different challenges, different circumstances in life. And I realize that some are even more demoralizing and traumatizing than others, so I don't want to lessen any of that. But we all go through things that form these mindsets that can keep us bound for our entire lives. Maybe you've heard things like, you'll never make it. You're so stupid. If people really knew what you're like, you're not like your sister. You're not good enough. You're not worthy. See, what you think about, you bring about. But you can break the stake. And I believe one of life's greatest tragedies is when we become a volunteer victim to someone else's agenda. But guys, here's what I can tell you. You cannot change the way people act, but you can change the way you react. You can't change people, but you can change yourself. You can't change people, but you can choose who you hang around. So who are you surrounding yourself with? Are you surrounding yourself with people that will breathe life into you? Are you surrounding yourself with people that you can lock arms with? So Sunday, Dusty and I were walking into church, and I'd actually locked arms with him. And when we were just approaching the doors of the church, I tripped. And it wasn't one of those times where you trip and you look back like the concrete grabbed you or something. No, it was one of those times where you trip and your head's down and feet are up. And when I got my composure, see, I realized that because I had locked arms with my husband, I tripped, but I did not fall. Who have you locked arms with? Who are you listening to? Are you still listening to your broke uncle that's going to keep you broke? Or do you have people speaking life into you? One of my favorite things about Advocare is that it's people who will breathe life into you, believe in you when you don't believe in yourself. I loved when Lois Gregory, Platinum Distributor, shared that when she retired from teaching, her daddy sat her down and said, "Lois, I'm worried about you." And in that moment, Lois Gregory had a decision to make. But Lois and Laramie saw freedom for their family, freedom for their little Lawson and Lucy. And in 4 years, Advocare's paid them over $1 million. Why? Because they were willing to break the stake. See, these negative thoughts, they come into our minds. Benjamin Franklin says by the time people are 25 years old, most have died, but they're not buried until they're 75. Why? Because the mindset that we form in our lives that keeps us bound will keep us walking in fear and not walking in freedom. But here's what I believe. That most predominant thought in your mind, that thing that you war with, that you may be the only one that knows about, I believe the most predominant thing in your mind is the greatest lie that is opposing your greatest strength. Some of you need to recognize what you believe about yourself. Some of the harshest things that have ever been said to me, I said to myself. I'm so fill in the blank. I'm so fat. I'm so stupid. I'm not worthy. Nobody's going to listen to me. And Les Brown says it like this. Most people fail in life not because they aim too high and miss, but because they aim too low and hit. And our negative thoughts, it gives way to bondage and it gives way to unrealistic fear. I can remember when I was just a little girl and I would lay in bed at night and I would be overcome by fear. I was afraid of the man under my bed. And I would stand up on my bed and hold onto the post and I would run and sling myself out in the hallway and take off running and go get my mama. She would come upstairs and flip the light on. We would look under the bed. And obviously there was no man. The fear was real, but until I confronted it, it remained. And friends, until you confront what you're afraid of, it will remain. You cannot change what you refuse to confront. So when you begin to confront those things and truly believe that you are a champion, you can absolutely do anything. And I believe there are people in this room. You may be in section 311. You may be in 137. But this weekend, you've made a decision. You've made a decision to be a diamond in Advocare. But diamonds are forged under pressure. Are you willing to take hold of those mindsets? Are you willing to just grab them by the horns, to look fear in the face and go for it because you're a champion? See, I want to ask you tonight, what do you really believe about this business, and what do you really believe about yourself? Have you attached a real reality to what is in your hands? 4 years ago today, I walked into church and saw a young girl lose weight, and when I asked her what she did, she said an AdvoCare 24-day challenge. In 4 years, everything in our life looks different. What do you believe? Every time I leave a success school, every time I leave a big event, I always think of the Hall of Famers. Why are they still here? Because they believe. See, your belief will be evident by your longevity. Will you be in this room next year with people? Will you be in this room next year with people? See, that'll be a real testament of what you truly believe. So what I want to urge you with today, do not become a volunteer victim. Do not voluntarily stay attached to that stake. See, some of you have had some success in AdvoCare. You've earned some income. You've lost some weight. You feel great. But freedom is a process. See, I was free physically, but I was still bound in other areas of my life. Dusty and I were earning $20,000 a month, and I still felt guilty to have my fingernails done. See, what I discovered is I had to change my mindset about money. And money is just a magnifier. If you're greedy, it magnifies your greed. But if you're generous, it magnifies your generosity. And money is good. Try living without it. But freedom is amazing. So maybe you've experienced a little bit of freedom. Maybe you've lengthened the chain. But today, are you really free? Can you imagine if this entire audience was living to our full potential? If we were all living a life of freedom, how different this world would look. And so I challenge you. Live a life of fullness. Guys, you are great. You have greatness within you. You are worthy. Everything that you need to achieve extraordinary potential, it's in you. What do you believe? See, guys, you were not created to be a great AdvoCare distributor. You were created to be great. Everything that you want is already in you. So I'm asking you today, will you break the stake? God bless you.
You can be the greatest, you can be the best, you can be the king, come hanging on your chest. You can be the girl, you can be the world, you can find your child,